Hello, micro teachers. For Micro Teaching 2, this is just a quick reminder / explainer video for you to check out before you do your first micro teaching. Now, the first week's micro teachers are coming up tomorrow, and I know you've been planning, and I know you're aware of activating schema and establishing context, but let me just take you through this to help you think about just a few things that might have slipped your mind. Okay, so starting with the instructions, of course, you probably understand this. Please turn it in before your micro teaching, and tell you what, if it's done by, geez, I have to go to bed early tonight, but if it's done before 10 o'clock or so, and you want some early feedback, let me know. You can try after 10 o'clock, but your feedback might come early in the morning when I wake up, so you can give that a try. Whiteboard plan, double click. You can add text or images. Again, the personal plan is for you, but if you want to show me what you're interested in doing, go ahead and do that. Same as before, you can leave notes about what you're going to do. There's some reminders here about what each stage does. Make sure to check that out. But a better way to look at it, in my opinion, is this handy-dandy visual that I made a while back. Okay, so when you're up there and you're the first person, you are basically activating schema like you did in MT1. So keep it easy, keep it simple, go from the very general and very easy to a little bit more specific about your topic. Again, using those interactions, responding to meaning, using all those tools that you already have. Okay, that part should not be too complicated. Now, if you got feedback from me on MT1 saying, don't practice language here, don't focus on too much specific language, no activities, you're just talking about your images, you're talking about your topic, you're personalizing. It's supposed to be nice and simple and just getting started, talking about what they already know. Now, as we move into establishing context, this graphic doesn't really show it that well, but establishing context, you're technically already getting into input here. Okay, so now your topic is more specific, and now your topic is really the text itself and how that, and getting students ready for the text itself. So now you're establishing context for the text itself, whatever the topic is of that text. So that's why it's considered part of the input stage. So as you're doing that, you remember the goals of establishing context, which are kind of shown on this rubric. You're giving them a reason to read, a reason to listen, involving them in the story. You've seen a couple examples this semester. So for example, in methodology class, when you did Bob Wants a Raise, the way context is established is basically by involving you in that workplace context, and you get up from your cubicle, from your seat, you're walking in your building where you work, and you overhear something, so you're interested, and so that's the reason to listen. I mean, you might have a prediction task there. That's also establishing context. Oh, so what do you think it is? Ask your partners. Now let's listen. Now let's read to find out if we're right. Okay, so that's establishing context. Another example, when you did 10 ways to lose weight without dieting, establishing context was basically, oh, here's my big fat cousin, and I want to help him. I need your help to understand this text. Can I trust this text? Is it easy to read? Well, that's a top-down question. Can I trust what's written here? Can you help me out? That whole thing is getting you involved in that context. Remember that another way, again, I just said a simple way to establish context is with a prediction task. So you're asking questions, you're personalizing about that topic that's in the text, and then you could maybe show them a picture related to the text, get them to predict what's in there. That's going to kind of motivate them to see if they're right, and read super quickly to find out if you're right. So it kind of connects to top-down, but you could do that before your official top-down questions. So that's another way to do that. Another thing I want to add about establishing context, oops, you don't want to see that, is when you're establishing context for your listening or reading, that context itself is kind of input for them, right? Because you're telling them information about the context that's going to get them inspired to read or listen. So that context itself needs to be comp checked. That's so important. I'm going to say it again. That context itself needs to be comp checked. So when you had your Bob Wants a Raise listening lesson, you probably heard questions like, okay, who are you? Where are you? Where do you work? I'm at Samsung in New Jersey. Why are you standing up? Well, you're walking to go somewhere, perhaps to the bathroom. And why have you stopped? Well, you heard something that could be interesting. So how do you feel? I feel interested. So that whole context needs to be comp checked. And you can do that. Of course, you can do T to S1. Gee, hey, who are you? Whatever. But if you want to really check comprehension with everybody, ask your partners, who are you? Ask your partners, where are you? Ask your partners whatever your specific comp check questions are after you've given them the context using MICs, of course. Okay, so remember that part as well. If you are the activating schema person, it's fine if you do another MT1, just a little bit better than the first one if you have some feedback that you can apply. If you want to be really smooth, you can kind of segue to establishing context, right? It shouldn't look like two totally separate things because you work together to create this and you're working together to teach this. So you can kind of smoothly connect it after they personalize. It could be something as simple as, and now my colleague is going to show you a real interesting reading, or now we're going to get a little more specific with my colleague, our classmate. Okay, whatever you want to do, you want to make that smooth connection. That would be a nice touch to add there. And establishing context, if you have time, or if you are the third person, then you have to do this. But if you have time, after carefully using different interactions, comp checking that context and involving students, then you can give them a top-down question. You probably have time for one top-down question. We usually don't get farther than that. I can give, by the way, in terms of time, I can give a pair of two 15 minutes to work with. So, use your time wisely. If you are the third person, the last part is for you. Remember that there's some things to remember about top-down, bottom-up processing. And that is you want to control the time and control their access to that input. So if you're doing reading, the way we do that is give a very short time for that top-down question. It should be something that they can get within seconds. 10 seconds, 30 seconds maximum. That's almost too much time for a very general top-down question about genre or main idea. But don't give them a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to read for a top-down question, because that's so long that they're going to be looking at every word. They're going to be using different reading skills, reading strategies, and they'll be focused on things like details. And you don't want that in a top-down question. You have bottom-up questions for that reason. Okay, so you've done that's in the case of reading. In the case of listening, you're really in charge of the time. In case of listening, my advice, my 5-star top-down question advice is you don't need to play that listening for longer than about 10 seconds usually. You should be able to say, oh, what's going on? What are they talking about? If you play it longer than that, then especially the higher level students, they're going to have so much information to tell you that, you might not get to the bottom-up questions. So think of it that way. 10 seconds for the top-down question is usually good. If you want to do 30, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then for bottom-up questions, feel free to go back to that 10-second mark where you stopped and play the rest, or even play the whole thing. Okay, play it once or twice or however many times they need it. Typically, students aren't going to need more than maybe 2, 3 at the most. And since our students are not real students, they'll probably catch those details pretty quickly. Okay, yeah, and so make sure to, if you're the top-down, bottom-up person, give those questions before the reading or before the listening. And I would also suggest don't give them all at once, right? Because if you give them 5 questions and you play it once, and especially if you play too long, they'll be able to answer all of them. I would just give a top-down question, play the listening for 10 seconds, elicit that answer, or even get them to talk to their partners first, then get that answer, put it on the whiteboard or your slides if you like to share, and move into bottom up. Again, show the questions. If you want to be super careful, you can comp check those questions too. What are we listening for? What are we reading for? And elicit those answers. Again, it's kind of a fun thing to do, and a useful thing to do is if after they do their top-down reading or listening, after they do their bottom-up reading or listening, before you call on one for the answer, why not let them talk in pairs, talk in groups first? That's really helpful, especially for the lower students, because if they didn't catch it, they're not going to be embarrassed because chances are their partner or one of their partners did, so they'll be able to share that. All right, just some tips before you go into microteaching tomorrow. I am there to support you, and I'm here for you. If you have personal plans you want to share early, well, early-ish, before 10 o'clock tonight, be my guest, okay? And if it's after 10 o'clock, I might have a chance to give you a little something before tomorrow morning, but like early tomorrow morning, okay? All right, and leave a note, please, if you turn in your personal plans early, because that's how I'm going to see it in my feed that a student is asking for early feedback. Okie dokie. Well, good luck to you, and let me know if you need another video or you want anything else to support you in MT2. Bye-bye.